Today I'll be presenting my project on how high school teachers use technology across different types of classrooms, including general education, 504, IEP, and self-contained settings. This project combines survey data from 63 educators with research from key sources like the Anxious Generation and other studies on educational technology. I'll be exploring how teachers use technology to engage students and support learning, what patterns emerge across settings, and what we can take away for future practice. Technology is now part of the daily classroom life, whether it's Chromebooks or iPads or AAC devices. But how it's used and how it impacts learning can look very different depending on the setting. As a special education teacher, working with high school students functioning at elementary levels, I wanted to understand how teachers use tech across different student groups, not just how often, but for what purposes. My guiding question focuses on comparing how teachers across these four settings use technology for instruction and to help students stay engaged. I organized my literature review around three major themes that came up frequently. First, how screens impact attention. Second, what works in digital instruction. And third, how to tailor tech use to student needs. Knowing this matters because it shapes how we plan lessons, not just how many devices we put in a room. It's not just the presence of technology, but how we design learning experiences with it. Jonathan Haddett warns that too much screen time can hinder teens' ability to focus and regulate emotions. Bogomar and colleagues back this up with data showing media multitasking leads to weaker attention control. But it's not all bad news, because Clark's research emphasizes that if multimedia is well designed and clearly tied to learning goals, it can improve outcomes. DiMarpo and Marcu's meta-analysis of tech use with students with disabilities shows it's not just about adding more screens, but it's about matching tools to students' needs and making sure they serve meaningful educational purposes. This aligns with what we know in special education. Thoughtful integration and not just more screens makes the difference. This graph shows the different ways teachers report using technology. Video demonstrations top the list across all groups, but there are noticeable differences when you look at things like read-alouds or individual versus group games. Here we see the strategies teachers use to help students stay focused. Self-contained and IEP classrooms tend to rely more on visual schedules and sensory breaks, while general ed uses more timers or task chunking. The last graph shows how often devices are used in each setting. Not surprisingly, general ed shows more occasional use, while self-contained and IEP settings report more regular integration, like reflecting the specific needs of their students. When I look at the data, I see that self-contained and IEP classrooms use technology in more intentional and individualized ways, such as visual schedules or sensory tools. In contrast, general ed classrooms use more whole class methods like videos. This fits with what Haddett and Bogomar say about attention challenges in teens, and with what Clark and DiPalmo's emphasis that it's not about screen quantity, but quality and design. In my own classroom, where I teach students with IEPs and AAC needs, I've learned that technology works best when it's balanced with hands-on learning, movement, and social interaction. These findings tell us, we need to help teachers make intentional tech choices, not just use devices because they're there, and that we should design flexible classrooms where tech is one tool among many. This page shows the references that I use to support my work, including the Anxious Generation and 2 additional peer-reviewed studies on multimedia learning and technology use in special education.